again, to search the tents. That was a way for us, you know, to pass another hour of our shift. Now, we wouldn't go inside Yatta or Dura or the big Palestinian town where there were actually, you know, I don't know, militias and so on. Because unlike small villages like Susia, in Yatta, if you want to go inside Yatta, you usually don't go with just one jeep. You go with a row of jeeps and APCs and whatever, because you know that there is actually a chance that they would, you know, shoot at you or something. So actually in the places where there is no chance that anything is going to happen, like Susia, that's the places that you go inside all the time, again, without really a reason. Just a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, what I was saying, that it creates this very surreal reality in which the villages that suffer the most are the villages that are not a security threat in any way. And that's actually the reason why you allow yourself to go inside there all the time, because you know that in the end nothing will happen there. But obviously things were happening and still are. I mean, there were attacks on the military or on civilians on the roads here. Actually in 2002, in 2003, you know, the peak years of the second Intifada, we would have every second weekend an infiltration inside one of the settlements. So how do you actually deal with it? Because in the end you don't know where the gunmen are coming from. So actually the main thing that the military uses is in many ways collective punishment. And I'll give you an example. The day that I got here to active duty for the first time, there was an attack. Palestinian militia shot at an Israeli car, killing 4 settlers. One of them was a 3-year-old child. And the response of the military was to close down Yatta, the main Palestinian town here, because those gunmen were coming from Yatta. Now, Yatta, like I mentioned before, is quite big. There are 70,000 people living there. And we were a very small unit at the time, something in the area of 70 combat soldiers. So closing down a town the size of Yatta was basically impossible with the manpower that we had. So what did we do? We went inside town, driving inside with the APCs, all the armored vehicles, using the megaphones to shout, Kul Yatta Mamnua Tajawel. All of Yatta, movement is prohibited. We stopped in the center of town, jumped out of the APCs, and closed down 2 streets. In those 2 streets, it was complete curfew. We closed down all the shops, nobody was allowed to walk, nobody was allowed to be in the street. But around those 2 streets, life kept on going pretty much as usual. So the curfew was in the first place completely ineffective. Now, once we were running there, you know, making all this noise, children started coming. Started coming and throwing stones at us. Now, the minute that the children started throwing stones at us, it gave us an excuse to retaliate. So we started shooting. Rubber bullets, tear gas canisters, anti-protesters grenades, which are basically metal cans full of little metal balls covered with rubber. You shoot it in front of you and it sprays all over. If you hit somebody with this from less than 50 meters, it can be fatal. But even in closer distances, it can be quite dangerous and obviously very painful. And that was the reality. For us, actually, it was quite exciting. Running, shooting. I mean, at some point, one of our commanders came to us and told us that he saw a child dancing on one of the rooftops. So he aimed his gun at him, but the child wouldn't move. So he shot him with a rubber bullet, and then he saw the child fall down. And then he got nervous, I mean this soldier, this commander, because he was afraid that maybe he accidentally killed the child. And with everything that I'm telling you here, it is important to emphasize that if you kill a child, or if you kill a civilian, there is a good chance that you'll be interrogated or maybe even court-martialed by the military police. There is a chance that you wouldn't, but there is also a good chance that you will, especially if it's a child. But after a minute, he saw this child getting up, holding his stomach in pain, and then he calmed down because he knew, well, maybe I injured him, but he's not dead, so I'm not going to get in trouble. Now, when he was telling us this story, he was quite amused, and to be honest, so were we. We thought it's a funny story. Now, at night time, the children would go home, and in order to keep us on our toes, then our officers would take us around this area of the curfew to shoot down street lights. The excuse that we can't have light over us because that might expose the soldiers and endanger us, but actually it was just like a firing range, you know. They were giving us competitions, who can shoot down the light bulb, you know, in one shot. And that was the reality for 2 weeks. 2 weeks we were inside Yatta playing cat and mouse with the Palestinian children. After 2 weeks, the general commander of the West Bank drove inside town, stopped next to our battalion commander. They both looked at the maps and that's it. In 1 second they told us, get back to the jeeps, you're driving back to Susia. And the curfew was over the same way that it started. Now, every now and then, we would go inside Yatta or Dura or any other of those big towns to raid the town, basically. Drive around and show our presence. In the briefings to the missions before that, we were told that we need to create a feeling of uncertainty among the Palestinian population so they wouldn't feel safe anywhere, and then they wouldn't dare attack us. So every now and then you would go on these show presence missions. Basically you drive around, you throw a stun grenade, the children start throwing stones, you start shooting back, and that's it. You go outside of the town. And I can tell you, like, in retrospective, that after I joined Breaking the Silence and became a researcher myself and started interviewing other soldiers from other times and other units, I realized that this concept of showing presence is an inseparable part of the reality here. Almost every unit, every soldier even knows the term, to show presence, להפגין נוכחות. It's happening here in Yatta, and it's happening in the north of the West Bank. Every now and then soldiers raid towns and villages just so that the Palestinians there will see them. Sometimes it just means walking in the village, sometimes it means to throw a stun grenade, sometimes it means to do a mapping mission, that you go inside the neighborhood and choose random houses, that you go inside and search them in the middle of the night and check who lives there and whatever, and then go out again. Basically a big part of the way that you do like the counter-terrorism missions is arbitrary. You know, you go inside, you search 100 houses, hoping that maybe in one house you'll find something. When in reality, what stands in the basis of this kind of mission is in the end to show the Palestinians that the military is the one who controls this area. Both within the big towns and the small towns, both in the cities and the villages, in the end is to maintain and eternalize the control here. Alright, let's go down and speak a bit about the settlements and the settlers, the third part of this triangle that I mentioned, and